To look at that legacy, we must look at the abandonment of these people to the city of Newark that's taken place by the larger American body public, by the American government, and by American corporations. Frederick Douglass in 1883, when talking about racism, he warned us, he said that it has been called a great many names and it will call itself by yet another name, and you and I and all of us had better wait and see what new form this old monster will assume, in what new skin this old snake will come forth. Old snakes in new skin, he said. But one thing about old snakes, when it assumes new forms, it's still a snake, still crawling on its belly, still hissing the old language of reaction, still working overtime to keep us poor, still working to nullify our votes, and they're working to nullify votes right now all over the country. And when we have that old snake of place, that spatial snake, it's been called slave quarters. It's been called the black bottom. It's been called the ghetto or the hood or the urban environment. But this new form, this new manifestation, always has certain people as the most polluted.
But the blacks were not the only group who suffered from Newark's environment. So did the Italians, and so did the Jews. They lived in unsavory conditions in the old Third Ward and the old First Ward, and they complained about the conditions. Indeed, one of the reasons why the Jews established a hospital, which is now worldly famous, the Great Beth Israel Hospital, which still stands in the South Ward of Newark, was because their health conditions were plummeting in Newark's Protestant-oriented hospital culture. Local newspapers reported the poor health of these immigrant populations and, of course, the migrant population of the blacks. So once again, race was deeply implicated in the local environment, in the health of local residents, in how health conditions health conditions were dispensed, and how the city over time returned to one of the nation's most unsavory places.
Panelists reflected on the lessons learned from Newark's historic struggles in ensuring an equitable environment in the future.
How clean is clean enough, and how are we going to get there? Both of those decisions are very important to another question, which is, and what will be there after we're done? What can go here? And my pitch tonight is that the public needs to be involved in that decision-making. The federal statute for remedial actions at the Superfund sites on the national priorities list, like Diamond Alkali, has very elaborate procedures for public involvement. Not so much for the smaller sites, even less, I think, for sites handled by the DEP, but even under DEP's laws, there's an opportunity, if there's substantial public interest in a site, for the public to get involved. And the public has to get a seat at that table. The responsible parties who created the mess and will be asked to pay for it, they have a seat at the table. They have a direct stake. It's their money. They have due process rights that protect their ability to represent that stake. Now, that's not supposed to affect what the agency does for a cleanup decision, but who's talking to them? The responsible parties are talking to them. The public needs to be there. And to be there, the public needs to be there early and needs to be there in an organized fashion. Can it really make a difference if the community is involved? Well, I will defer to Anna to talk about that, but I think the answer that we've seen in the Ironbound is an unequivocal yes. I just have a couple of thoughts about perhaps how to do it. I said early is better than late. Organized is better than disorganized. If you're organized, you have a better chance of getting heard. You have a better chance of being taken seriously. You have a better chance of getting a technical assistance grant from the government, which is not a lot of money, but it's better than no money. Do we want to be confrontational, or do we want to take a cooperative tack with the government? Well, this is a matter of choice. In my experience in the government, I have seen the street theater. I have seen confrontation. I saw EPA people being called Nazis in public meetings. That works sometimes. But I've also seen cases where confrontational tactics tied the EPA up in knots, and tied them up in knots for so long that eventually they just kind of threw in the towel and said, you know, we'll do the cheapo, easy remedy that the responsible parties want and get the heck out of this site, because it's been 20 years now. That's a bit of an exaggeration of what happened, but it's not too far off the point. I've never met the EPA employee or the DEP employee who wants to leave the public with a contaminated mess. So I personally think that at the staff level, you catch more flies with honey. And it's important to be able to get in there and talk the talk with the government staff.
Newark is in a position that we can bring back some of these industries, and we can bring them back with our water. And we can save lives of our residents by continuing to produce the great quality drinking water that we have in our city. And then I just want to say that as a mother, and as we begin to think about environmental equity and environmental injustices in this community, we have to pass the baton to the next generation of environmental advocates. And so I see a lot of students in this audience, we have to ensure that the lessons that we learn are the lessons that we teach our children, and as we progress and move forward, that those lessons are not lost. Because I think that part of the environmental degradation that we live with each and every day in this city is because our leaders didn't understand what was happening, and they continued the cycle. And they continue to bring in the wrong kind of businesses. They allow those businesses to continue to pollute and destroy this city. And so as we move forward, we have to change all of that. And it has to be a paradigm shift in the way we think, the way we live. It's not just a term, let's go green, or let's produce a vibrant and healthy city. We have to mean it, and we have to live it.
The struggle to control space is always present. So we can't forget the agency of human beings. So from when they built University Medical, there was a fight when they cut up the Central Ward the way they did. When they started building the highways, there was a fight. Committee for Unified Newark had a huge fight in the North Ward over Coweta Towers that never got built. The struggle then must be to redirect the course of the nation, of the state, of the city, and the neighborhoods where we live. But for us to be able to recommit ourselves to themselves, we can't lie to ourselves about what is and what isn't going on. We got to be able to step forward on truth. And I know that right now, with unions under attack, with working people under attack all around, everyone has a tendency to kind of crouch down, to get in their own singular foxhole. But you can't win a fight crouching down. I used to be able to box a little bit once upon a time. And I know that if you're in a corner, you can grab and you can spin out, you can slip out, you can drop your butt and blast out. But you're gonna have to come out the corner. We collectively right now, for those of us who believe in progress, for those of us who believe in freedom, for those of us who want a different America, it is now time for us to get out our crouch, to step back on the stage of history and to put forward a new vision for what it means to be American, a new vision for what it means to be a Newark resident, a new vision for what it is we want in the world.
So these challenges of blighted land, unwanted facilities in the heart of our community, the search for an economic foundation and prosperity, the stigma of our community as a dumping ground, as a wasteland, we still are fighting those things today. And these pictures were taken but a few years ago of a stadium in the background that was closed in the 1980s from contamination. Children were playing on this site as of 1997, where you see dumping here. So we have to learn lessons from our predecessors, and we also have to learn new tools to change the dynamics of the underlying structures that give rise to these inequalities. We know that the environmental laws of the 70s and 80s are ill-equipped today to deal with the cumulative, disproportionate, and racist siting and accumulation and concentration of polluting facilities that we face today. They're ill-equipped. We need new tools. We need new laws and regulations. We know that we have to build strong grassroots alliances and political base for true democratic participation so that we have a say in the decision-making that impacts our lives. We have to hold our officials accountable, forge coalitions, but most of all, we have to challenge this mentality, this zero-sum mentality that the only way we get economic prosperity is if we sacrifice environmental protection in our health, in our well-being. This zero-sum mentality has never worked out for the city of Newark. Our residents have never seen prosperity come from these deals, and they never will, because environmental justice is built on a different type of economic prosperity, a different model of environmental justice. I want to close with this slide because it's a reminder of the inherent contradictions of this new global economy that we're in. Here you have a young man who lives in Terrell Homes in the Ironbound. He lives along the banks of the Passaic River in the shadow of empty shipping containers from China that were brought here from the seaport. We have to ask ourselves, these children, what dreams and what hopes do they have for prosperity, for health, for a real future? We live in one of the largest consumer markets in the world. Every day, goods are shipped here into our seaport to deliver into the ravenous regional market goods manufactured from all over the world. Yet our communities face concentrated rates of poverty, unseemly levels of inequality, unemployment, and pollution that is unseen in the rest of the region. So we have to shine a light on this. As activists, we have to connect these local struggles, our local struggles, and the realities of living with those struggles. This is the reality. This is what the global economy looks like for Newark residents. It doesn't look like a job, and it doesn't look like a pretty backyard. We need to re-examine our values as a society when we turn a blind eye to those that are the most vulnerable, that we wreak all of our unwanted and nuisance facilities on those that are most vulnerable among us. In the Ironbound, as in the rest of Newark, as in many communities throughout this country, we are continuing the fight. Today we fight the gasification plant or the medical waste facility. We fight on. But I hope that we fight on multiple scales and multiple levels to achieve that elusive vision of environmental justice for our children and to respect the hard work of our predecessors.
Since the 19th century, the legacy of economic activity in Newark has been linked to issues of environmental quality and public health. Mindful of the city's history, lawyers, urban planners, policymakers, community activists, and others have worked to secure a safe living environment for all of the city's residents. Justice is at the heart of these struggles. There are many ways that justice and the environment have intersected throughout history. Please check our website, www.njch.org, for more information and resources specific to New Jersey. For the New Jersey Council for the Humanities, I'm Bob Mann. Thanks for watching.